People always ask such great questions in my live Q&As. So for this time that I'm away, I thought that I would share with you a question from a community member and my response. I hope you find this beneficial. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Make sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. Do you have a good response you could give me to say to someone who tells you stop being a victim or to choose not to be a victim anymore? Jody, good question. And something that I think, unfortunately, everybody has heard in one way or another. So, those types of comments are typically, so being able to understand why somebody would say that, I think is helpful. People who make those kinds of comments are typically in denial. They live their life from a place of denial, meaning that they don't want to have to deal with anything that they don't want to have to deal with because it's uncomfortable to deal with. And when people say, don't be a victim or don't play the victim or stop being a victim, it's because they don't have the capacity to face reality. Maybe your reality, maybe reality in general, or maybe even their own reality. Oftentimes, people who say those kinds of things are in denial of their own struggle, their own experience of being a victim in some way. So it kind of depends on the nature of the relationship, how you might address it. And I'm smiling because what like one of the things that comes to mind is, I don't know that I should probably say it here. So, so realistically, in a normal situation, you could say something along the lines of, especially if it's somebody you have a relationship with, you might say something like, when you tell me to stop being a victim, you are minimizing, or you're furthering the like victim blaming my experience. So you're minimizing my experience, or you're victim blaming, or it feels to me like you're victim blaming. So you could say something like that. You could go a little bit further and ask them why it's so hard to think of somebody as a victim. So that's kind of challenging them a little bit. You could also say something along the lines of, because when somebody says that, so when somebody says you're playing a victim, what that is telling that person is that they don't have a right to feel how they feel. So you could say to that person, again, depending on the nature of the relationship, when you tell me to stop being a victim, you're telling me that how I feel doesn't matter. You could also say to them that talking about how I feel or talking about what happened to me is not being a victim. It's standing in my courage. Because it is. It kind of depends on how challenging you want to be to them. I tend to be quite challenging to people. Now, I never used to be. I never would have said anything like that to somebody a long time ago. But now, particularly as an advocate, I am fairly confrontational with people. And I don't mean that in kind of like an aggressive way, but I will bring that to their attention and tell them the kind of damage that they're doing by having that kind of idea about it. You could also choose to not talk to that person about anything related to it. because that person obviously is not a person who can be supportive of you. And that's about them. That's not about you. But that person isn't going to be able to support you, isn't going to be able to witness you. So you may need to, for yourself, kind of recognize that and set a boundary for yourself that, okay, this is not somebody that I can go to. This is not somebody I can talk to. It's important to recognize who you can talk to. And unfortunately, for many people, the people closest to them in terms of relationships, so maybe a best friend even, or a family member for sure, that we consider close, sometimes those are not the people that we can talk to about our experiences. So that's something that you might consider. Another thing that you could say is, you know what? I thought the same thing. I thought that talking about it was being a victim, and I wasn't going to be a victim. But you know what? All that did was make everything worse. All that did was continue the idea that I'm not worthy. All that did was make me believe that I wasn't deserving of being in a healthy relationship, or whatever that might mean for you. So I hope that that helps. Unfortunately, most people, and I think I can say most, not necessarily the majority of people, but I think most people who would say something like that have not addressed their own wounding. They may not even recognize their own wounding, whatever that is. But I have recognized years ago that some of the most significant, forceful critics of being a victim are people who refuse to see themselves as a victim, who have actually been victimized. That has been my experience. Even listening to other people share their experiences, that has been the case. So don't take it personally. That's really important too. Do not take it personally. Think about it. So many people have felt better after listening to somebody else speak about their own experience, right? An experience that you can relate to. You've heard somebody else speak about it, and it makes you feel better. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you found it helpful. If you have your own question that you'd like to ask, send it to qanda@courageousjourneys.com. That link will be below. And if you're interested in participating in live events, group experiences, healing experiences, or would just like to stay connected, make sure to sign up for my newsletter. That link will be below as well. Thanks so much for watching.